Wake Me Up After the Apocalypse by Evil Goo. Chapter 8, East Blue. The room was empty, save for a bed without sheets. There was a blanket in the closet, at least, but the rest of the house was pretty much devoid of all signs of life. A thin layer of dust on the window frames and in the corners of the floor. Nami made a mental note to grab a few more things. She'd ask Usopp what he needed later, but she could guess on a few necessities. They had stopped by the community center first, and Nami had introduced her nakama to the few neighbors still eating breakfast. Meals were eaten together usually. There were no kitchens in the homes, lending credence to the boarding school comparison. Ben and the twins were the only ones still in the cafeteria, but she figured that was for the best. She didn't think Usopp was in a very social mood, despite being an otherwise very social and fun-loving person. He was not having a normal day, and she couldn't reasonably expect him to take all of this and act perfectly normal. She was certain by this point that the hair on the back of his neck was standing on end with the creep factor of this place. Witheria was sunny, beautiful, and peaceful. The citizens were kind, mostly friendly, and helpful. If you needed something, it would be provided. In other words, from the viewpoint of a very easily spooked pirate used to weird-ass Grand Line situations that usually spelled out death, it was checking all the boxes of what the fuck? Too good to be true. Too much like Whiskey Peak or the like. She got it. That was why she knew she couldn't stall anymore. She had to sit down and offer up the full grisly details for Usopp, and get him to stop looking at her like he expected her to grow a second head and try to eat him. She sat on the unmade bed with a sigh, indicating Usopp should take a seat as well, with a small pat next to her. She frowned when he did not follow the direction, choosing to place his large tote on the ground near the wall and stick close to it. His kabuto was in there, she knew, and even though he had no ammo, he probably felt safer with it close at hand. He didn't trust her. At least, not 100%. She expected as much. She looked different, acted different, and was being far too helpful for the Nami she used to be. She knew that much. She could self-assess and recognize that the world had forced her to change a lot in subtle ways that may make her friends suspicious. Okay, I get it. You can stand there and I'll just tell you what I can. Keep in mind, a lot of things are still just a great big question mark for me too, but we have theories that may connect some of the dots. Are your legs seriously shaking right now? What, do you think I'm going to hurt you? Oi, it's not like that. I am a brave warrior that can handle whatever weirdness this village can throw at me. It's just, I'm still not at full strength, and we've been walking a lot. That's why I told you to sit down, idiot. He gave her an appraising look, and it seemed that for whatever reason, her insulting tone reassured him significantly. He grabbed one handle of the overfull tote and dragged it to the head of the bed, plopping down heavily with a groan and rubbing at his thighs like they were killing him. Nami probably should have been a bit more gentle with the recently released patient, and felt a twinge of guilt at her unthinking attempts to distract him from his questions, dragging him around the whole damn village like a toddler showing off their favorite toys. He needed to know where everything was, but maybe he didn't need to know on the first day. Oops. Well, he was tough. He could take it. He gathered up his sore legs and scooted back to lean against the wall, sighing contentedly at the respite. All right, lay it on me. What are we looking at? Red oceans, a sickness, separated from our crew. What else could possibly go wrong? Oh, that was just the start. 4 years ago, Kuma slept all of us across the seas to various islands, she began, only to be immediately interrupted. Yeah, I know, that's not news. Just let me tell it my way. I think maybe you've been given a different interpretation. Dion, another person we picked up a while back, was like that too. She took a deep breath, starting over again. We were all sent to various islands. I was sent here. Apparently you were sent to Boyne. While we were separated, something came out of East Blue. At first, it was just killing people. It's like a plant, but like no plant on the planet. We call it the Redvine because we are very uncreative, and that's literally what it looks like. Laws studied bits of it, and it's made up of something a bit more like an animal. So when you cut it, it bleeds. Noticing the face he made, she nodded. Yeah, it's gross. So, he began, slowly, staring up at the ceiling. It killed people? It's that dangerous? Yes. How many people? Nami felt uncomfortable with the question, though it was a very natural one. They were from East Blue. This was personal, and the pain was still so sharp in her heart, every bit as it would be if the knowledge was brand new to her. A lot, at least in East Blue. I think everyone. Something heavy had settled in the room, on the bed, in the air between them. Nami felt as though neither of them had taken a breath in a long time, though it was probably only a matter of seconds. Why had she started there? Why not just talk about the plant and move on? Because no one else understood. Because no one else was from the weakest ocean. And she hadn't really been able to properly grieve the loss because she had just been so alone for so long, and it needed to come out of her mouth, and oh, he was staring at her, and she could read every thought that passed behind his gaze. His eyes looked a little too shiny when he finally breathed again. What? Nami couldn't look at him anymore. If she did, she was going to lose her careful control. She had worked hard to be able to school her face and keep the hurt hidden inside, where it couldn't infect the others. She stared at the floor, at her feet. Much of her weight pressed hard into the wooden boards, as if they wanted to support her in springing up and running away from the pain between the two straw hats. Everything, she managed. He gulped, rather loudly, she noted, since she wasn't looking at him, and to her horror, she felt a clumsy hand thump heavy on her shoulder. No, don't touch her. If he touched her just then, while she was fighting that whirlwind in her stomach, then she was going to lose it completely. Nami, are you sure? She stared at him until he looked away, gulping once again, unable to handle whatever he saw in her expression. I should have been here. Maybe I could have done something, maybe... Shit. She didn't want him to take it like that. No one could have done anything. No one has been able to do anything to date. She sucked in air through her teeth, fighting tears and the pressure of his hand on her shoulder, and the way it sounded like the conversation had flipped, and he was trying to say consolatory things to her, and it was all backwards. It's all over. The red ocean, that's the plant. It grows fast in the water. The entire world is covered with it, Usopp, but this doesn't make sense. I hear what you're saying, but this happened while we were separated? Why wasn't it in the newspaper? If East Blue was attacked, did it spread after we were in Wano? We never went to Wano, she hissed, annoyed that some of the rebel tears had managed to pool in her eyes. And they had nowhere to go, but she refused to let them fall down her cheeks, so she attempted to look up until they dried. Usopp was sitting a bit behind her to the right. She hoped he wouldn't notice. He was the one that was recovering. He was the victim. She shouldn't be the weak one right now. I never told you about Witheria. We never met up again in Saboti. None of that actually happened. Usopp laughed. Fucking laughed at that. Ha! I see what's going on. Some enemy messed with your mind, Nami. Geez, I was actually freaking out there for a bit. He removed his hand, finally, and Nami mechanically turned to face him, shocked at the sudden turn. The tears ended up falling, but there were no further dissenters. She was too completely flabbergasted for crying. This complete and total moron. Damn it, Usopp, please don't try jumping to your own conclusions right now. It's going to give me a heart attack. Just listen to me. I'm pretty smart, right? He nodded, hesitantly, drawing his own legs up to sit with them crossed. I mean, smarter than most of our nakama, at least. Then again, if I gave any other answer, you'd probably hit me, so... He was right. She wanted to hit him. It's not my mind that has been erased or changed. At some point between East Blue and the Grand Line, something happened to the plant. It's like it changed tactics or got enough energy to do so, after eating all those people and animals, and it started taking hostages. He almost looked like he was going to laugh again, and she was so full of so much irrational anger at his completely off-the-mark reaction that she did, actually, hit him. A full fist to the side of the head, hard enough he nearly fell over, an overdramatic shriek emitted from his big mouth. Oi, Nami, what was that for? Don't just go hitting people. Shut up. You're really going to regret not taking this seriously. Every time you make light of this situation, it will compound how hard you're going to take it when reality sets in. Plus, if you do it again, I'll double your debt. Ah, the infamous debt. She had nearly forgotten. It was like being around him, arguing, was bringing back so many parts of her personality that she had neatly folded away and packed as useless. She didn't know if that was good or bad. Fine, he managed, rubbing at his head and wincing. Definitely Nami, he also muttered, under his breath, but their proximity meant she could hear him quite easily. The plant started to keep people alive. It went into their brains and changed something. Law has some very big worded theories that I vaguely follow, but since I'm not a doctor, I won't try to explain it myself. Basically, it produces hallucinations in its victims while keeping them asleep. Or rather, the spores are what keep them asleep. If you breathe in the plant's spores, it will paralyze you and eventually put you under. Makes it easy for the plant to catch its victims. That would be you. Me? He asked, pointing at his face and looking a bit disconcerted, like he didn't appreciate her insinuation. A victim? So when you say I was sick and sleeping for 4 years... Yes, it got you. It got you while you were on Boyne Archipelago, apparently. Uh-huh. And Heracles? Nami stared blankly. The other guy who was there? Again, she said nothing. Did they miss someone? No, she hadn't seen more Redvine. She was pretty sure she had reached the end of it. I didn't see him. If he was captured too, it was on another part of the island. Or he could have just plain died and the plant retreated. Or he may not have even been real. Another product of the plant's hallucinatory properties on Usopp. Usopp let out a long breath, scratching his head and the place where she had hit him. He was frowning, and all at once, with a rather frantic motion, he grabbed the goggles from around his neck, pulling them over his head and holding them in front of his face. His eyes got real big. I lost these goggles. I broke them. You didn't. I made my Kuro Kabuto. That never happened. His hands were shaking, and he grabbed the eyewear tighter to try and stop them, engulfing the pair with his large palms. He was breathing faster now, all remaining traces of humor evaporating like smoke. His head snapped up, something a little desperate in his voice when he asked, All of East Blue? He believed her. God help him, he believed her now. In some ways, she kind of wished he didn't.